Hey there. For today's math activity, we are going to continue working on comparing weight. Today, when we talk about comparing weight, we're going to think about what it would be like if we used a balance or a scale to compare weight. Now, if you are like me, you don't have that kind of a balance or that kind of a scale at your house. You might have the kind of scale that you step on to see how many pounds you weigh, but that's different than the kind of balance or scale that we use at school. Even though I don't have a balance like that at my house, I can still think about how a balance would look if I were using it to compare the weight of objects. And at the end of this lesson, I'll show you how you can make your own balance from things that you have at home. So let's start by thinking about the balance that we had at school. We had two in our classroom, and I know that a lot of you enjoyed using it when you were at the block center. And remember that the balances that we use in kindergarten, they have a bucket or a container on each side, and they move up or down. So I'm going to use my ruler to talk about it. So it's just like being on a seesaw, if you've ever been on a seesaw. If the person on this end and the person on this end are the same weight, the seesaw is balanced. It's not moving up or down, it's straight across. If one person is heavier than the other person, the seesaw will go down. So when we use our balance at school, whichever side has the heavier object or objects will go down, and the side that has the lighter object or objects will go up. So when our balance is straight across, it means that the objects on each side are about the same weight. If our balance is turned this way or turned this way, it means that one side is heavier than the other side. Remember, the heavier side will go down and the lighter side will go up. Okay, so let's look at a picture that I have of a balance. This looks like the one that we had at school. So we had a container on each side, and then it could move up or down. If the objects in both of the containers were about the same weight, then our balance would be straight across. If it's moved like this, where one side is up and one side is down, that means that they are not the same weight and one of the objects is lighter and one of the objects is heavier. So I'm going to put some pictures on my balance here that would make sense with the picture. So we know that the side that goes down is heavier and the side that goes up is lighter. And that's what these sentences say right here. This is lighter, this is heavier. So for example, if I put rocks on this side of my balance and I put leaves on this side of my balance, this is how my balance would look because rocks are heavier than leaves. So the side that contains the rocks would go down and the side that contains the leaves would go up. I could also do cotton balls on this side and sand on this side. Okay, this one is also true. Sand is going to be heavier than my cotton balls. So if I put those objects on my balance, the side that has the sand will go down and the side that has the cotton balls will go up because cotton balls are lighter than sand. Sand is heavier than cotton balls. Okay, now let me show you one that would not be correct. I'm going to put feathers right here and rocks right here. Okay, now this one does not match the way that my balance looks. According to my balance, this side, the feathers, would be heavier than this side, the rocks. And that's not true. We would actually need to switch those. Rocks are heavier, so they would match the side that's going down, and feathers are lighter, so they would match the side that is going up. So remember, when you're thinking about a balance, think of it as a seesaw. The heavier object, the heavier person goes down, and the lighter object or the lighter person goes up. So what we're going to do for today's math activity is let you compare your weight to the weight of something else. We want you to think of something that would be heavier than you are. We sent this paper with our plans for this week to your parents so they can either print this out, or if they don't want to do that, or if you don't have a printer, you can make your own. This one I just drew. I put the same thing on it, but I drew my balance and I wrote my sentence at the top. So if you don't have a printer, that's okay. You can make your own. So on my paper is a balance, and at the top it says a blank is heavier than me. So I want you to think of something and compare the weight of that something to you. And it needs to be something that is heavier than you, something that's going to weigh more than you. Okay, for example, I would not pick a leaf. A leaf is not going to weigh more than me, but I might pick something like a car or an elephant or a bus. Those things are going to be heavier than me. And you're going to draw that on your balance, but you need to draw each object or each thing in the correct place. So if I'm looking on my balance, I see that this side is down and this side is up. So I know that this side is heavier and this side is lighter. So if I'm looking for things that are heavier than me, where am I going to draw them? Am I going to draw them on the part of the balance that's going down or the part that's going up? I'm going to draw it on the part that's going down. If it's heavier than me, that means it's going to be pushing the balance down. So if I wanted to say that a car is heavier than me, I would draw my car on this side, and I would draw me right here. And if you want to, you can label me, and you can label the other object that is heavier than you so that we know what it is. And then you're going to fill in the sentence. A blank is heavier than me. And you're going to fill in the word of the object that you drew that is heavier than you. So make sure when you draw it on your balance that you draw it correctly and you put you in the correct spot and you put the object that is heavier than you in the correct spot. And again, if you can't print this out, you can make your own. I just drew my own. I drew my balance with this side going down and this side going up. And I wrote my sentence at the top, and I left a spot for me to fill in the object that I drew that is heavier than me. So now I'm going to show you how you can make your own balance at home with some objects that you might have around your house. We're going to make a coat hanger balance. So all you need for this is a coat hanger. I've got 3 different kinds that will work. You need some ribbon or some string or some yarn, whatever you have around the house. And you want to make sure when you cut them, you're going to need 2 pieces. Make sure that they're about the same length. And then you're going to need 2 containers or cups that you'll be able to, with the help of an adult, poke holes in so that you can tie your ribbon or your yarn or your string. So I have these little styrofoam cups at my house. I've also seen it where you can use the little fruit cup containers if you have 2 of those, but something that you'll be able to make a hole through so that you can tie your ribbon or your yarn or your string. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is cut 2 pieces of my ribbon or yarn or string, and I want to cut them in about the same length. Make sure they're about the same length. So when we were talking about shorter or longer, we don't want one of these to be shorter or longer. We want these to be about the same length. And then I'm also going to cut or poke holes in my styrofoam cups. Now I have a hole punch, so I'm going to use that to make them. If you don't have that, make sure that you ask an adult or family member in your house that can help you make the holes in your cup. And depending on what kind of cup or container you're using, depends on what you're going to make the holes with it. So I'm going to use my hole punch. And when you put the holes in it, you want the holes to be across from each other. So I have one hole there, and then on the other side I have the other hole. So I'm going to do the same thing on this cup. Make one hole, and then across from it, I'll make the other hole. Awesome. Okay, so I've got my 2 cups with my holes across from each other. Okay, now I'm going to tie my yarn or my string or my ribbon. So you could try taping it, but I don't know that that's going to hold it. It's going to depend on how heavy your objects are. So I'm just going to tie one end of my ribbon right here, and I'm going to tie the other end. I'm going to put it through this hole and tie it here. So it's going to look like a bucket with a really long handle, okay? So I'm gonna do the same thing to the other cup using the other piece of yarn or string or ribbon that I have. Now that I've got my cups ready to go with my yarn or ribbon or string attached, now I'm ready to put together my balance. So I found 3 different kinds of hangers from my house that would work. You can use wire hangers also. If you have a hanger like this at your house that has the little notches cut out right here, this one will work the best. If you don't have a hanger like that, that's okay too. But if you have any that have this little notch cut out at the top, then it's super easy. You just take your cups with your yarn or string or ribbon attached, and you just simply put it inside that little part that's cut out, and you're ready to go. If you don't have a hanger like that, it's okay. You can still do the activity. If you have just a plain hanger like this one, or like just a plain wire hanger, it will still work. What I would do before you tie the ribbon or the string or the yarn to your cups, go ahead and loop it around the bottom so that it hangs, and then tie it onto the cups from here. And then what you might want to do before you start using it to test the weight of different objects is put a piece of tape on each side, so that way the ribbon doesn't slide or the yarn doesn't slide. So just tape it right here, but loop it over, and then you can tie it onto your cups. And for this kind of hanger, I can do the same kind of thing. It's got little notches here on the side, so I could either use those and just hang my cups like this, or I could do it the way that I did the one just a second ago and loop the ribbon over and then tie my cups on from there. So either way, the hangers that have the little notch cut out, those are the easiest to use, but you can definitely make it work with any hanger that you have around your house. Now you're ready to use your balance to compare the weights of some different objects. Now remember, because it's not a perfectly balanced balance, it may not be exactly straight, but it will be close. And also remember that what you put in your cups depends on how big your cups are. So like for my cups that I used, they're pretty small. So the objects that I put in to compare the weight have to also be pretty small. So let's see if this works. So for my first test, I'm going to put this marker over here. And on this side, I'm going to put my hole puncher. And I'm putting it in carefully. Whoa, look at that. Which one is heavier, the marker or the hole puncher? The hole puncher is very good because that side is going down. So the hole puncher is heavier than the marker, or I could say the marker is lighter than the hole puncher. Good job. Okay. This time, let me try 2 different markers and let's see if one is heavier than the other or if they're about the same. So I'm going to put this marker on this side, and then on the other side, I'm going to put this marker. Ooh, they're almost the same. If I look at my hanger, it's almost straight, but it's going down just a tiny little bit more on this side. So this dry erase marker is just a little bit heavier than my Crayola marker, but they're pretty close to the same size. So if you do make your own balance, you can have fun testing some different objects around your house to see which is heavier or which is lighter. Just remember to be careful about putting things inside your cup or your container. Make sure they're not too big. Make sure that they'll fit depending on what size your cups are. Have fun!